live lockdown painting with me, Graham Twyford, at the easel. It's been building, and quite a gratifying number of people stay the course. They actually start watching and watch it all the way through, I'm told. Something about stats, but let's go on to the beach. Here we are, oil painting tonight. This is a white with a little bit of ochre. Just been working on these camera angles. This technique is called wet into wet, or wet in wet painting. It's really good for painting skies and effulgent effects of light. You can see this is all quite warm. There's some cadmium orange in here. This is a time to settle into the work and to steady the nerve. Enjoy the paint going onto the canvas. Hoping you can see a lovely warm glow. Expect to be on this for about the usual half hour. Try not to overrun too much. So I've got my usual gallant crew in the studio, if you forgive the maritime pun. We've got Sean, Anna and Julie, my wife, all making time in their busy schedules to join in. Let's try some depth of warmth here. Burnt sienna, this is a crimson. Just throw a little bit of glow in there. This is a cool colour now. I'm using up some of the colours I was telling you about in the garage. This is Windsor Blue, which is like phthalo blue, and it's mixed with some raw umber. A little bit lighter. See the wet into wet technique? You lay a colour, it's well forced into the canvas threads. It's not too heavily applied. And then, in this case, a complementary colour is laid over the top. Should be able to produce some cloud banks. Might not quite see the Isle of Man in these conditions. Sorry, Al. Dreaming of his homeland. He's not been able to get back to Manx country since the lockdown. So he was very pleased to see my publicity painting, reminding him of home. Well, we can take a softer brush here. This is a hake. This will make short work of fusing some of these shapes. mixing the colour wet into wet on the canvas. So some of those warm accents combined with the cool and produce a lovely intermediary hues of colour. You kind of know what's going to happen, but it's always a little bit guesswork, and you can be pleasantly surprised or not so. Just going to raise this up a little bit here. I've got everything right apart from the height of the work. It's better. While we're at it, we can bring some of that colour down here. Some umber. You're going to see the tide coming in. Of course, most familiar to me is Walney Island, having grown up there and seen it in all varied conditions. Really excellent place to grow up. There's a cup of tea somewhere. Ah, there it is. I wonder if somebody could pass me that. Look who it is tonight. It's the other one. Simon. You know you've made it when your beard gets onto commercial products. Excellent. Right. Let's settle me in. So let's now look for other forms. Let's put it in the horizon. If you remember from the sky painting that I did of the Grisdale forest as a backdrop, just remember that the sky influences the landscape in those conditions of light, and it's the same here on the sea. These colours are largely composed of the same as the sky, just a little bit darker. And then this cooler colour is going to come in as well. This is the Windsor Blue, raw umber, a little bit of ochre. More of the umber. I'm thinking of the colours of Walney. They're never the same, but it's not Cornwall and it's not the Hebrides. We don't have that crystal clear turquoise colour, which is so attractive. We've got plenty of that nearby in the lakes to make up for it, but Walney tends to be a muted colour. Doesn't mean it isn't without lovely colour. You can see sparkling blue seas on some occasions. But generally it's a kind of pewter hue. But the light will bounce off the surface and pass through, creating all kinds of lovely variations. This wet into wet technique again with the this body of water. See, I can streak horizontally through there. You know, that Windsor blue is very insistent. It's a dye, so it tends to be very strong in tinting power. So it might look a little bit Hebrides, this. Let me clean off that brush. I want to run these two together. I want the distance to look a little bit soft focus here. See how the horizon and the sky just fizzle together a little bit. Liking that that glow of rose above the horizon. It's a very common sight at morning. The sun setting in the west. See that soft focus. Just the dissolution of the edge. Oh, acrylic painters, I meant to say you can certainly do this. This oil is fantastic stuff for these effulgent soft edges. See, I can just pick up any time and just go back to it. Acrylic painters, you probably need to finish each bit as you work on them, generally, and then you can let it dry and work over the top. Oil painters, you can go back in to this and rework the edges at will. But acrylic painters, I would suggest that you work on the same surface, which is a commercial primed canvas, and wet it before you begin. Just wash over with water, allow it a minute to soak in, then pat it off with a cloth so it's damp, not wet, and then rub in some of the slow drying medium, and then again buff that off with a cloth, so you're left with a soft, greasy finish. And that will really slow the drying time down and make it behave very much more like oils. That would be the thing to do. Right. Let's put some dark in. Really go for the darks here. Let's have a think. Round about here. I might have to get my angles worked out. Are we still in focus there, Sean? I think we can see that. Yeah. Not missing any of the painting by the looks. This is more of the raw umber with a little bit of the blue. And again, surfs up on Walney. So this wave coming in, the swell. Let's paint this wave. The trick is to allow the brush. It took me years to get the hang of this. So the books all say just let your brush move like the flow. Very easy to do now, but not when you begin. You're constantly trying to make it look real, and often it's a case of the brushwork that will provide that for you. So that wave is seen against the light, and so you see it's throwing a shadow into its core. And the Walney water is not very transparent, but the light does go into it for sure. So often what you're looking at here is the colour of the deep. Cornwall and the Mediterranean is so clear, of course, that you might even see the weed floating in the water, like a crystal clear. But Walney tends to be more of it's translucent. I'm going to use a cloth now and take some of this back with white spirit. So I'm going to show you a device for marine painting, which is hugely attractive and fun to do. So we have this wave breaking. And you need to be analytical in this. So I spent many hours just gawping at the sea to learn what's going on. You think, oh, I'll just take a photograph, but that's not enough. It doesn't do it. You've got to understand what's going on. And what's going on is that the wave, as it breaks, it comes into shallow water, it piles up and accelerates, and it thins. So if the light's behind, it will allow light to transmit through at the thinnest part of the wave towards the top. It's like an erratic cylinder of water. You're looking at the inside of a cylinder. So you see that's now turning golden yellow, which you do see on Walney. It's a colour that you'll see if the light's behind the water. And now we need to fuse these two together to create a transition. So this dark colour will now fuse with the golden yellow light coming through. Very soft edged. That's an initial blend. And what I need to do here is blend it with the rolling motion of the wave. So that's the brush stroke. Just at the crest of the wave, the light will come through. Lovely. Might get a minor one there as well, just following in behind. want that one to be quite as insistent in colour. We'll have a little hint of it there. Now, another interesting element after that is the roll of the wave as it finds the topmost bit. There'll be some way along the wave where it will curve over, form a rolling cylinder of water. So the brush strokes, it's this movement here, it's sweeping up and over. So these can be foam trails coming up and over. And then now let's take some blue light from the sky. This is a white with umber, but mainly a white with blue. There's some umber in here as well. But the troughs between the waves, we're going to pick up some cool colour here and there in these troughs between, where the water just flicks the light back. A few more in the distance. Now they'll form whitecaps. So this one it will have a little bit of foam along its crest, just beginning to flicker along the edge of the wave. They're a little bit roller coaster up and down. As they come into the light, they're going to pick up more of the golden light from the sky. As they go back in the distance, the spaces between them will close up with perspective. Now on the back of this breaking wave, there's going to be some light. It's a smooth, glistening cylinder. If you look at it, no wave is the same, but you look time and again at the phenomena, and the light will just catch on this edge. And it will fill with air and streak, and it's got to follow the flow. So here we go, up and over, up and over. Now we need to clean off some more paint. Because then what happens is it crashes over on itself. If you wipe it back, it gives an impression of the foam, but it also gives me an area of clean canvas. And the foam will go into shadow, so I've got it blue. It's white with a little bit of blue in there. And there's a little flicker of that forming on the wave as it reaches out to left and right. But this is the bit when it's decided to break. Need some more of that. We need some shallow water rolling up the sand. Becomes see-through and you see the colour of the sand through the water. And while you're at it, trying to keep everything moving, we take a soft brush and just fluff up this blue-grey. And we take some of the blue and we look out for the waves that have gone before. The remnants of the previous waves that will be on the beach flowing back. We take those and then we streak them back along the shelf of the beach. Streaking foam patterns running back into the tide. And we're working towards the much more vibrant highlights, the white on the foam as the sun catches on it. So for this we have a pure white with just an accent of yellow in there, tiny accent of yellow. And a filbert brush is very good for this. We might just get a little sparkle of light along that flexible crest. And this goes on thick. What we must do is give it some animation. You get this spindrift effect, and it gives momentum to the wave in the painting, where the tops with the acceleration and the breeze just flick back in the air. A little bit of spindrift. Everything animated. Some of these plumes of foam following the action of the wave. Now the highlight. We'll reach into these previous wave caps that have crashed to shore, now flowing back into the sea. Turning blue as they get into the shadows. Streaks of foam. Actually looking darker than the water, a darker blue. I meant to say Anna never made it tonight. Neely, she's here, but she's been very busy. You may know that she's been doing this Age UK work. She's been sewing, using her fashion skills and raising it amazing at over £1,000 in the last 10 or so days. It's been very hard work for her, but she's really enjoyed getting her teeth into this. And she was almost too busy to come out up to the studio tonight, but she's made it, I'm pleased to say. But fantastic effort from Anna there. She did fashion at Leeds, and now she's working in London. We need some stones here. We need some rocks and stones to finish the job. These are going quite dark. Another one over here. Walney isn't particularly noted for rocky outcrops, but there's lots of interesting rock debris strewn around. An amazing petrified forest at the south end at low tide. All kinds of fascinating things about Walney. Can't go into it here, not enough time, but it's a fascinating spot. Thought these will give us some foreground. Just I'm drawing this to a close, but I'll show you some of these books. I learned to paint the sea as a youth, and these are the books we all used to use. The Walter Foster. They used to be $1. Now this one is exorbitant, $2. You could buy these at the art shops. Books like this were fantastic to learn on. My own particular favourite and a very big influence on modern painters of the sea is, I mentioned him before, Iwasowski, who really transformed the natural look of paintings capturing the sea. That's just one of his amazing pieces. Artists now are quite used to this. There's many very talented artists can do this, but Iwasowski really set the bar very high in the late 19th century. Iwasowski. But the interesting thing about the Walter Foster books, when we were in San Francisco on our trip there, we went over to Alcatraz. And you may be familiar with the film with Clint Eastwood, but some of the cells were, they'd left the belongings and they'd been left, or they'd reconstructed how they would look. And many of the inmates took up painting. And one of them was like a painter that had all his stuff round in the cell. And the Walter Foster books were there, and I had half of them in my collection. So me and this chap in Alcatraz had that in common. And they were given painting privileges, and some good artists came out of it. Usually landscapes of the big forests and Rocky Mountains and the sea, yearning for freedom. But I think we're going to wrap this up. As usual, I'm just getting my teeth into that. But I hope that's come over on the camera lens. Yeah, we just keep adding little bits of glistening light, particularly here where the light gets into the sand before the waves. Oh, we need that to go a bit darker there, melt off into the distance. Sea and shore, Walney Island. Thank you very much for watching.